Welcome back to another episode of Time Out with the Sports Doctor podcast. I hope you're having a great week. It's hard to believe that we are halfway through November, only 6 weeks away from 2026. As a community, you requested to hear more information about financial topics, and we responded. Over the last year, I had the opportunity to partner with Doc2Doc Lending, as well as Pattern Life, which has disability and life insurance, to increase awareness on financial topics that are important to decreasing your debt burden as well as increasing your wealth. So, we've had many different episodes where we've talked about proper use of loans, how to pay down your debt, also on investments, as well as the ability to protect your insurance with disability insurance, especially for physicians. So, what we will do in this episode, we will go back to spotlight some of the important topics that we've discussed over the last year. So if you've missed some of these episodes, this might key you in to go back and listen to the full episode, but we want to share some of the highlights from these previous episodes, and I hope you enjoy. For many people, if you're a resident or you're finishing medical school, starting residency, and you know that you have medical diagnosis, because you can be excluded from your ability to even have disability insurance, period. So especially if you have pre-existing diagnoses, doing this during residency could be your only time.
That's right.
So you need to be educated, especially if you have diabetes or ADHD or whatever your diagnosis is. You need to know how that affects your ability to be insured, as well as, unfortunately, pregnancy is a diagnosis. And once pregnancy is a diagnosis on your chart, it stays there forever. God forbid you have any complications. These are all things that you have to take into consideration before letting that window of being in training pass you by.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's really wise. Yeah. All those items are true. And again, you're right that some of the only options available to people who would be unable to be underwritten for disability insurance, meaning going through medical review by an insurance company, some of those options only exist while you're in that training program. So it's prudent to examine your options right away as soon as you can. So kind of harkening back a little bit, what were some of the financial habits that you feel like you've installed in your life that have really made a significant difference? And this could be post training, of course, into your current years.
One of the main things is automating my life.
Mm.
When you have a bill, putting it on auto pay, when you have a credit card, even if you're not going to pay it off, which I would suggest, but make a minimum payment so you're not missing these payments, especially with your student loans, automating those payments. Because if you start to miss payments, whatever your percentage is that you're paying can triple sometimes. So especially with credit cards, you do not want to let these things balloon out of control. You don't want to lose your house because you missed one payment and the rate changed and now you can't afford it. So I'd say automating my life was the main thing. And then actually starting to pay myself first. Many people say, hey, pay yourself first. What does that mean? Okay, I have my budget and I know I have these bills to pay and I'm going to live within my means so that I can pay myself by investing. I can pay myself by making sure I'm putting away money for retirement. These are things that are very critical because at some point you're going to have to stop working. And for many people is at an age way earlier than you determine. For some people, you get to work until you feel like you want to stop. For many others, you have to stop for other reasons. So I would say automating payments and then paying myself, meaning investing in myself, making sure I'm saving for retirement, making sure I'm putting away money before I start to pay everyone else.
Yeah, I love that a whole lot. There's a book called The Automatic Millionaire out there, and it's talking exactly about what you are right now. This is especially potent for physicians. You're on a time crunch. And so a lot of these things that you're talking about are one time, set it and forget it, right? Like you can have deposits go from your paycheck straight into an investment account or a savings account. You can have your debt automatically being paid down and you don't have to think about it to a large degree. So I really love that advice right there. That's really potent. Are there any small steps that when you're in residency, fellowship, even med school, what are some maybe small actions that they could be taking that kind of gets them started in the right direction financially?
Some of them are learn to live within the means of a paycheck as a resident. And if you will duplicate that for a couple of years, I'm not saying for the rest of your life, I'm not saying never take a vacation or never take your significant other out on a nice dinner. But if you will learn to be comfortable in that uncomfortable situation and learn to keep your life at that same stage for a few years and pay down your debt, pay down those student loans, and start to invest early, it will make a world of difference because you cannot overcome time with investment. Compound
Mm.
interest is real. Also, interest on your loans are real as well. So
Yeah.
the longer they sit, the higher they grow. The earlier you invest, the higher it's going to grow as well.
I think that's fantastic. Yeah. When it comes to investing, more time in the market is always best. It
Yeah,
almost always wins in every situation. The idea of living like a resident for just a couple of years after you get out of training and you become an attending, that's a hard pill to swallow
it's
for
a
a lot
hard
of
pill to
doctors.
swallow.
And
Yeah.
I've kind of put a similar idea like that out on social media and I get mixed reactions every single time. It kind of pokes people in a different way because there is this mentality of, I've just been through the ringer and it's time to reward myself. It's time for me to be able to be on a different level from a lifestyle standpoint. So this lifestyle creep starts happening. And before you know it, you're behind compounded a lot more years than you were before because doctors are starting off in life from a financial standpoint a lot further behind their peers. So, yeah, getting some of those things figured out early in the attending years is so critical from a time and market standpoint. So, how have you managed to balance your career in medicine with some of your financial goals?
So I'll say my career in medicine is my main source. At this point, it's my main source. So I think when you start off, you have medicine, which is going to pay you a good income. You have to be able to use that income because it might not always be there, or you might decide, hey, I don't want to work as hard as I'm working in my early career. And as you start to transition out of medicine, you want to have other streams, so multiple streams of income, whether it's passive forms of investment, whether it's active forms of investment, maybe with real estate, or if it's using your talents and abilities to do other things. For instance, as you mentioned, I have a podcast, I do speaking. There are many different ways as a physician that you can use your talents, your name, image, and likeness as well to generate income, which many times you don't know anything about this in the
Yeah.
beginning. I've learned so much just by trial and error over time. And when you perfect your craft and do it well, which is what I would tell people that are coming out of residency, first concentrate on being the best doctor you can. Master that. Once you're comfortable with your day-to-day flow of medicine, then start to introduce other things. Many people want to skip that step, but that's very critical. What steps would you tell them to take even before they come to the website to get ready to apply for a loan? What should they have in place? What education should they, get about loans in general before they accept one?
Absolutely. So I think a couple of things. First, assess and understand how much money you need to borrow and if you do need to borrow this money. If the need that you're contemplating paying for is one that you should be borrowing for, there's two types of spending. There's consumption spending and there's really investment spending. So if you're just borrowing to buy something that you're consuming that you don't necessarily need in that moment, maybe you shouldn't be borrowing for it, but you should wait until you have the cash flow to pay for it outright. But if this is a need that requires an investment of capital, investment in yourself, it's career development. Investment in yourself is debt consolidation. Investment in expanding your practice, your business, or just investing in getting yourself from point A to point B, then you need to borrow the money. You need to borrow the money. The next thing to do is kind of assess by doing some comparative research on what interest rates are for consumer loans. So you have a sense of what the spectrum is. And then you want to go about the process of applying to platforms that will not hurt your credit score to see what you'll qualify for. So think of the phrase a soft credit pull. Soft meaning it's not going to be a hard ding on your report, but you at least get to window shop and compare lenders to each other and say, okay, is this rate, is this payment, is this term appropriate for what I need to use the capital for? And with that process, we hope you land on Doc2DocLending.com. I know that we've got a branded link with the Sports Doctor platform. If you click on that link, that'll lead you to our website and you can consume our resources and budgeting on use cases and just do a check. Within a matter of 30 seconds, we can tell you what you'd qualify for with us and we can fund that loan within 5 to 7 days.
Great, great. And then the other thing is for established physicians that say, hey, I want to be a part of what you're doing? You mentioned a $23 million raise from other physicians. How can other people get involved?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, we have raised $23 million in equity from doctors. We've done $150 million in non-dilutive capital from a credit fund and a bank, but it's a doctor-led, doctor-owned company. And we currently are having a $2 million raise on startengine.com. That's the crowdfunding platform that Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, is the face of it. We were accepted into their ecosystem to do a $2 million pitch, and the link will be added to this podcast. So you can see where you click on that link, and you can invest as little as $500 or as much as you'd like.
I think financial literacy is so important because the more you understand, the more you know, the less risky your moves will be. I remember when at one point in my life, I didn't want to do anything except put my money into a savings account. And that was it because I didn't want to lose it. But then you realize if you want to get to certain levels, then you have to invest and you have to be educated before you make those moves so that you don't. Well, number one, that you're not frightened. And then number two, that you're not taken advantage of or lose your hard-earned money. Are you a young physician who's frustrated in figuring out how you're going to continue to fund yourself through this early phase of your career? Are you tired of speaking to lenders who do not understand your plight? We have a solution for you. Let me introduce you to Doc2Doc Lending.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Zawade Marshall, co-founder, CEO of Doc2Doc Lending. We are the exclusive lending partner for physicians and dentists in the United States. We underwrite our loans thoughtfully, knowing the physician journey and your career trajectory. We're a company that's been founded by doctors and built for doctors because we get it. Banks don't understand all the ways in which we struggle through educational debt, consumer debt, as we're trying to make ends meet during a very challenging time of our lives. Doc2Doc is underwritten with thoughtful process that's meant to give you credit for all the unique physician characteristics that you have, like being board certified, having a dual degree, undergoing and finishing a specialty or a fellowship as well, and just being employed as a physician. All of those things give you credit to get your interest rate lower with our platform.
So we are glad to partner with Doc2Doc Lending. So if you are stuck trying to figure out where you can get funding or where you can continue to support your family during this time of transition in your career, we offer you a solution. Doc2Doc Lending, physician-owned, understands your plight, understands what it's like to be an early physician or a physician who wants to do something outside of medicine. Check out Doc2Doc Lending. This segment is a paid advertisement for Doc2Doc Lending, Inc. Loans are made available by DR Bank, member FDIC, and are subject to credit approval and available in approved states only. Representative APRs for Doc2Doc range from 9.99% to 26.99%. Terms and conditions available at doc2doclending.com.
You have to meet your patients where they're at. So
Absolutely.
A lot of times what people complain about, what I hear my friends and family complain about, are going into a facility or doctor's office or even in for surgery, and they're saying, this is hurting, this is not feeling good, I've been dealing with this, oh, that's just growing pains, oh, that's just normal, that's just you getting older, and a lot of times good physicians do, but a lot of times physicians are like, okay, let's get this case closed, let's get this done, let's get the surgery over, let's get them scheduled and be done with the patient. Whereas you believe in follow-up and making sure your patients are good before and after. So with Bravenly, we're not doctors by any means, but the products are created by naturopathic doctors that are looking in the natural health and wellness space. And it's meeting our customers where they're at. So if we just go with an approach of selling, okay, I want to sell this because I need to make X amount this month. Yeah, you should have goals. However, if you don't build that relationship with your customers and get them to trust you and be a product of the product, they're not going to trust you to purchase. And it may be something like, I'm having anxious feelings. Okay, I have Calm for that if you want to go a natural route. We need our doctors, we need our nurses, we need all of our medical staff. I mean, we are never going to ask any physician, doctor, surgeon, whatever, to quit and do this full time. Now, there are some that are on my team personally that have cut back on their hours because, as you know, and can speak on, physicians work long strenuous hours and are on call and having to dig into family time. And I know that you've balanced that really well. So I'd love to talk to you about that as well. But building the relationship first, seeing what their needs are, not trying to sell them the entire Brave and Lead catalog of products, but trying to hear them. And if they only want energy, let's just talk about what gives energy. Let's not give them 10 products and try to sell $1,000 worth of products to get that sale. So I think listening to the customer first, just like you would listen to your patient first, and then offering them solutions to help them, and then to continue to follow up. The retention rate here is crazy. The residual income is great, but it comes from repeat customers. If the product's not working, if they don't like it, if it's not making a difference after they've given it a solid, month, 2 months to try it, not just a sample, then they are going to look elsewhere. In this society of GLP-1 everywhere, people are looking for alternatives, but they're desperate. They're desperate to feel better, look better, lose weight. And that's what I like about Brave and Lead. We're not a weight loss company. We're health and wellness. So we have something for everybody. But yeah, as a physician, how is that for you, meeting patients where they're at when you're having to listen to their ailments and try to offer a solution?
If you're going into anesthesia residency, they give you a test on day 0, Derrick. Like day 0, they want to establish a baseline for where you're going to be so that they can prove it to themselves that they taught you something over the course of the 4 years of the residency. And it's not meant to be a test that like the scores really matter for you per se. It's a benchmark, but there's no feeling like the intimidation of day 0, an exam, and you think you're going to go through meet and greets. And then when you bomb the exam on day 0, how demoralizing it feels to go with all the imposter syndrome that you already have experienced. So day 0 is a tough time, and I'm still scarred from it, but I think it motivated me to work harder over the course of the year.
Yeah, and I'll just share my kind of day 0 moment is I'm an intern. I'm graduating from Howard University College of Medicine. I did not match the first time in orthopedic surgery. So I'm an intern in general surgery, which is not my end destination, but I know that I have to be the best intern I can be as a general surgery resident. However, I have to be an orthopedic intern at the same time, and I have to start preparing for
Pressure.
going back through the match, So I can recall going through intern year, and this was right before the shift to 80-hour work week. So going through that intern year at the same time, always thinking, what do I need to do to get into the orthopedic department? I need to go to grand rounds. I need to help the interns or the other residents at the same time. So that pressure is real, and you're always comparing yourself. So that's one of the hardest things during this transition time for doctors. You have to focus on so many things at the same time. You might be new to a city. You might be trying to get settled into an apartment. You need to meet the guy to turn on your electricity, however you have to be around. So we understand what you're going through right now because we've all been through it and we've all made it through. So it's possible. It's not necessarily easy. This time of your life is going to demand a lot of focus. It's going to demand a lot of things out of you. However, I want you to feel relief in knowing that it's already, everything that it wants out of you is already in you. However, you just have to be calm and collective and be able to learn how to process all this information in real time.
That's really inspiring. I'm happy that you shared that because I meet so many transitioning residents who are planning on trying to match into a specialty a second or third time. Some of my closest friends that are phenomenal physicians, that are program directors and on the verge of being department chairs, 2 bats at base to get into their chosen specialty. And there's a certain resilience and a grit that comes with all of that we go through collectively, but especially the folks that did not get where they wanted to be the first time. And the character building, the empathy for others, the knowing that you got to work really hard with an uncertain future, and just trust and believe that the work that you do is going to be recognized and the rest will kind of fall into place, and just kind of doing the best you can with whatever's in front of you in that moment. So hats off. And if you're hearing this and you need that extra word of encouragement, I'm sure Dr. Burgess's story there was inspiring.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it can be done. And that's why I like to share my story, because so many people, we get tunnel vision in medicine. Like if we don't get into med school the first time, or if we see like our classmates have that perfect specialty, they're going to that number one hospital. I hate the fact now that on rank day, everybody walks across the stage and opens up an envelope, because some people it's the best day of their life, and some people it's like, I'm holding this envelope, but it's not really what I want. But you have to get up there and you have to smile and you have to go through it. However, it might be, well, I'm not going to say even it might be, it is the situation that you're supposed to be in at that time. And it's whatever you have to get out of that situation, you go, you do your best, you get it, and you move on, because you don't really know what you're being prepared for. Like you said, not matching does not mean you can't ascend through academics, or ascend to be a practice owner, or ascend to be a chairman or a program director later. Sometimes you're just going through this transition. And if you make it through, that's when your real dream awaits you.
Absolutely. And challenging part of all of this is you just describing the hardship of the clinical work.
Right.
Now, what about balancing your family life? You've got a kids, you've got a wife or a husband, a partner. You're thinking about your finances. We began by saying, there's $200,000 to $300,000 worth of debt, and so you've got this gorilla on your back, and that is all the expectation of I have to clinically perform to progress through my training. But life doesn't stop or pause because we're going through this time in our lives. And so we're effectively mortgaging our youth for this higher calling of practicing medicine and service. And so as you think about some of the things that you should be thinking about from the moment you begin that transition, and from any stage, it's student loan repayment. There's the PAYE program, PAYE. And now I'm getting into the D in dire. So the debt in dire, debt, student loan debt, the biggest thing that we all have. It's a mortgage already before you buy your first house. And thinking about repayment programs and what it means today. Do not do this on your own. Don't check the box, sign the documents without speaking to a financial advisor or an expert, because the PAYE program is one program that you can potentially enter. PAYE, it's pay as you earn. It oftentimes offers lower payments than the IBR, or income-based repayment. Eligibility requirements are a lot more stringent, but if you get into that program, it'll be less cash flow out of your pocket, but it does continue to accrue interest over time. Similarly, try to avoid forbearance if you can, because a forbearance means that you stop making any payments because of a hardship, and the interest still accrues over time, and it can end up ballooning and getting compounded again on the initial principal. So if you can enter into a thoughtful repayment program with the guidance of a financial advisor who can help you budget to see what payments can you afford to make, and do you need to be in the PAYE program or an income-based repayment program that's going to have a stepwise graduation up as you earn. And there's nothing wrong if you don't come out of residency and go to your first job. If you go into a fellowship program and you're still earning relatively less than you would in your full-fledged career, the payments do not escalate that much. So something to think about.
Yeah, that's good, because you mentioned forbearance and hardship times to pull money out of your loans, and different things are going to be dangled over your head, and they're going to sound good because you do have an emergency right now that you need to take care of. However, you're thinking about the long run with your student loans and how you're going to be best able to pay it off, and you don't want to put yourself in a trap early on. So thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely. And life is not linear. You're going to be some forward steps, some backward steps. And, God knows that for me, I had to take some backward steps and had to do things that I wish I didn't have to. But sometimes you're given just two bad options, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got to figure out how to survive in that moment and then repair it for the future. And that's also why we're here, that our journey wasn't perfect from a financial perspective either. I came out of medical school with a mid 600 FICO score. I didn't have bad behavior per se, but there were missed credit card payments over time. There were challenges within my personal credit profile that I had to work to come out of. And so today's talk is meant to help you know that you should avoid it if you can be thoughtful and intentional about that dire acronym. But should something happen, you don't give up, and you understand the way these FICO profiles work, the way risk analysis works, and the things that you can do to help yourself. Beyond forbearance and pay, there's a repay program which is similar. But the last thing I'll say about student loans is you've heard a lot about public service loan forgiveness, the PSLF programs that are out there, and there have been changes to that as well. But do know that this is still in effect. if you are employed by a nonprofit or a government hospital, which is what most residency programs are, you can get into a qualifying repayment plan, either IBR or pay, that counts those years while you're in residency and or fellowship against the 120 months of on-time payments that's needed for you to have an eventual forgiveness. There are
Very important.
caveats to all this, so speak to a professional, but think about these things as you go into that meeting around what options do I have if I'm going to be doing a 6-year residency and a 3-year fellowship. That's 9 years. You've got 1 year left to possibly have those loans forgiven.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for continuing to support this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, then please leave a 5-star review. And if you haven't done so, subscribe so you continue to get the updated episodes. Until later, peace.
Hey, time out with the sports doc. Keep our head right in the game. We ain't never stopping. You are now tuned in. Trust you don't want to miss. This is where life, sports, and medicine.